Alright guys, welcome back to CoreTech PC. This is Cody. Today we're going to show you how to do custom cable sleeving, as I mentioned in previous videos. Now, the advantage to having this is, one, it helps with airflow in your case when you have custom length cables, and two, it just looks a lot better and more clean and professional looking, and it's a good way to wow your friends and boost your ego more than anything else. So basically what I'm going to show you here before I actually get working on the video is the tools we're going to need. So first of all, what we're going to do here, I'm going to move the camera, is what we're going to have is this cable, which is the one in question. It is a 6-pin plus 2. This is to the power supply, obviously, and this goes into your graphics card. Now with my 670s, this particular piece is not needed and will be removed in the final. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take, as you see here, all of these are actually color coded, the yellow being the hot wires and the blacks being the ground wires. Here, however, you can see that they're kind of screwed up, like for example, that one right here is got a missing piece. Now keep in mind that I've been powering my graphics card with the last cable that I modified, where this here didn't matter. Like, these can be put together as long as the card is receiving power. It should not matter. So you'll notice that there's a couple of extra cables that will be missing. One of the black cables is split into two, which goes down to the +2 pin right here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cut this cable roughly in half. And before you go and ask me why that's mutilating a cable and making it completely useless, I'm going to show you how to solder the cables back together and then use heat shrink tubing to basically make a perfect seal and have it to where you can do customized cable sleeving. Now, that being said, our tools and materials we're going to need. I highly recommend a multi-tool like this one, which is a pair of pliers that has knife and, sorry guys, apologize, has a knife, pliers, saw, all that kind of stuff. Mostly what we're going to do is just basically hold things in place with this. So that's one. Excuse me guys. Another really important thing is the use of electrical tape. Now what we're going to do with this is when we're running the cables through the sleeving, it's good to make a barrier to where it's not going to try to claw its way in, because the way I do it is I cut the cables in half and then put the sleeve through. I have been experimenting with other techniques, so I might actually change it up a little bit in this video, but this is a very important thing to have. It also holds your cables in place what time you're trying to sleeve them, because believe me, trying to put a sleeve through something that's got it pointed in on it is a pain, because these pins are hooked, so just keep that in mind. So moving on, wire strippers. These are very useful. The cables that we're going to use are actually going to be using the 18 gauge, I believe. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to cut the cables and then we're going to strip them down and then resolder them, because if we're going to cut the cables in half, we have to do a little bit of butchering. Alright, moving on. Personally, I would highly recommend investing in a set of this. These are Mod Smart full pin removal toolkit. What it does is when you open it, I'll show you this. I actually bought this just the other day on Amazon. It was a steal because I got a whole lot of stuff when I bought my graphics card. So what these are for is this is what the Molex pin remover is for. So you just basically jam this inside of your Molex adapter and pull on the other end, and your pin should come out with almost no problem. Now you will have to put a little bit of force, but don't worry, if you do it right, you will not damage your cables. So that's one. This one, I honestly don't know exactly what it's for yet, because I haven't had the opportunity to research it and use it. So we're going to put that over here for now. This one is the one that you're going to want. This is the one that you push into the power supply pins and whatnot, and you have to use some force, and then you pull on the other end, and when you do this, it should come out far easier because it pushes the little tabs on both sides of the pin. This one is not so much as useful in this case because it's basically for the auxiliary power cables and stuff, like the little one-off ones like for your fans and stuff. But since this is a water-cooled machine, this stuff is kind of pointless. So basically, we're going to be using these two right here. Alright, moving right along. We're going to use a pair of scissors to take the sleeving off, the old bland and black sleeving, and also in the meanwhile, since I don't have professional tools obviously, we're going to cut the cables in half, and then we're going to basically, well, we're going to cut it in half by measuring it at the board, or the power supply. So we got the power supply, and then we're going to have like the end destination, which will be the graphics card in question. So whatever this distance is, you add just a little bit extra and then cut off whatever's left. That way you have a perfect fit that you'll be happy with and everyone else will be wowed by. So scissors go over here. Moving right along, we're going to be using some lead-free solder. Technically the best kind of solder you can use typically is silver solder, because it doesn't have the same kind of chemicals in it that are really, really horrible to touch and breathe, because lead can get into your bloodstream and cause all sorts of mayhem. But basically we're going to use this with a dual setting excuse me, a dual setting soldering iron, which allows you to go from 15 to 30 watts. Personally, we're most likely going to be doing 30 watts. So there's that. Now, the most important thing you're going to be wanting to use is, of course, your cable sleeving, and I also got this from ModSmart. It's a nice color when you got it under the right light, but obviously it's not the right color that I wanted that would match my other cables, but it's pretty close, and I'm not going to complain. If I want to, I can always go back and re-sleeve the earlier projects because they kind of bothered me in a whole lot of ways. So anyways, I got these from ModSmart power supply cable sleeving kit. It is in UV blue. I got this for about $10 at Amazon.com. Technically, it's almost always certain that you will get better deals on the internet than you will at a normal store. Now, I will go on and say this, that what you're seeing right here is pre-included heat shrink tubing. This stuff you can pretty much throw away because it's not exactly great. I mean, it doesn't have the right kind. Sorry about my finger going across the screen. It's not perfect. It's not as good as what you could get. You know, like, you get what you pay for, and I paid for this, not for this. So don't worry about that. Other things you can do, you can also buy kits just like this one, and as you can see, I've kind of mutilated the crap out of it, so I wouldn't give it too much thought. Okay. So for the actual heat shrink tubing, we're going to be using some I actually bought at my local Micro Center store. More accurate packaging. This one is from NTE, which stands for, well, I have no idea, but it's an Electronics Incorporated at the bottom. But basically what it is when you open up something that's electrical, it's almost always got some kind of heat shrink tubing on it instead of using electrical tape, which a lot of people rig. So what we're going to use it for is basically, instead of using electrical tape, which comes off after a while and can really, really, really screw up things, we're going to just go ahead and use some of this. Now, I will show you in the next video because this one's getting rather lengthy, but I'll show you how this stuff works and whatnot. So anyway, we'll keep going. Now, for the actual tool we're going to need, we're going to be using, as I said before, it is a dual setting soldering iron. It's got 15 watt and 30 watt. Now, the thing about soldering irons is you have to keep the tips clean, and you have to keep them, you have to sponge them down, which helps clean them, and you have to scrape off the corrosion, and you want to keep this tip above all else silver, or else it will not work. So be sure to have a sponge with some water, and as I said before, the multi-tool, which will help tremendously keep this thing running. And also, when you're soldering, make sure you have some kind of ventilation, like a fan especially. You don't want to be breathing this stuff directly, because, you know, there's no telling what will happen to you. Anyways, that aside, what we're going to do now is in the next video, which will be part 2, I should be posting them roughly at the same time, so just bear with me. I will have most of the stuff set up properly, and excuse me, I'm sorry. We'll have all the stuff set up, and I'll show you how this stuff is done, and I'll try to keep it as close to not having to be time-lapse as possible, but this project should take you a good hour or so, depending on how well you would do it. The better you do your job, the better your quality is going to be, and the less likely you're going to screw up. Now, soldering, if you've never done it before, is quite tedious. I'm not a pro at it, obviously, but it's much better than just taking 2 cables and twisting them together, because the bond is a lot stronger and it's closer to true factory zero configurations. So anyways, thank you for watching this video, and when part 2 comes out, which should be just about after this one is posted, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to blow my page up, and I would be so very appreciative of this. You guys are awesome.